Girls, tell me where specifically is the weirdest place that you personally, girls, have ever gotten the urge to make whoopee? Olga?
Go ahead.
In the
Bob Eubanks, very popular host of the Newlywed Game. Corn Sharks as well. Very famous American disc jockey. He's done it all. Game shows and television shows and spinning records, even as a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And he is set to join us here momentarily. He's got something new going on. And I think, in fact, he's here. So, you know, if you really look at all of the things he's done throughout his career, including all of the recognizable stuff in the awards, and like I said, the star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, this guy is a legitimate legend. Legitimate. One of the true icons. Newlywed Game in 1966, Card Sharks 86 through 89, making his debut on the Bernie and Sid Show. Give it up this morning for the great Bob Eubanks.
Yay,
good morning, Bob.
Mr. Eubanks.
Hey, good morning, guys. How are you?
Oh, great. How are you?
Great having you.
You even have that voice on the radio, like,
much.
how are ya? Like that.
Yeah, you see, look, you guys, it's, what is it, 9:40 in your time?
6:40 LA, right?
Yeah, 6:40.
Yeah, and you still have
I
it.
got up early to talk to you guys, you know.
We appreciate it. You sound great, by the way, Bob. Sound fantastic.
Oh, thank you, Matt. Thank you.
So listen.
I'm having a wonderful time right now because I made the determination that at this point in my life, what I want to do is help people. I've had such a great career, had so much fun, but I had something happen to me. I was in the rodeo world for many years, and I got bucked off a lot of horses, had both hips replaced and back surgery. And a friend of mine came to me and he said, "You're having mobility issues, aren't you?" And I said, "Oh, man, am I ever." So I went over to his house and started working out, and during the next couple of months, he developed the 60-up balance board, and it was developed for me. He had no idea he was going to do anything with it. And, guys, I can look you in the eye and tell you it changed my life in 3 weeks.
Wow.
I couldn't swing a golf club. I can now. I couldn't go up and down stairs, and I have a 16-year-old son. I couldn't shoot hoops with him. But the 60-up balance board changed me, and so I decided what I wanted to do is I wanted to help other people. And if anybody has a loved one or if you're having balance trouble, man, go to 60up.com and just take a look at it. That's the number 60 and then up, because it's wonderful.
Sounds amazing. I mean, equilibrium. My mother, for example, Bob, she suffers from vertigo. And, by the way, it's awful. Yep. It's really awful. And, she goes days and weeks where she can't sleep and she's in pain. And when you have vertigo, of course, your equilibrium becomes compromised. This is all part of that, yes?
Yes, it really is. And, I have a little vertigo issue also, benign for positional vertigo. But all I can tell you, I played the AT&T Pro-Am in 1989 at Pebble Beach and made the cut.
Wow, that's right.
A year ago, I couldn't swing a golf club, and I can now. And I'm so excited about it that I just want to help people. And it gets the brain, the difference between this unit and other units, it gets the brain and the body working together. It's not just an exercise where the body does it. And I think that is the big secret here. And I read a medical report the other day from England that says that you can increase your life expectancy by as much as 8 years if you have good balance. And that's crazy, man.
Yeah. That is amazing. That's quite the accomplishment. It's a 60-up balance board. 60 the number. 60-up balance board. Go to 60up.com. Bob Eubanks, listen, you're a legend, so we have you here. We'd love to ask you a couple of questions about your career, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, let's do it.
Before we get to the Newlywed Game, I'd like to ask you about, you were a concert promoter, and you promoted all kinds, the Stones, the Herman's Hermits, but the Beatles as well, for a long time. But did you ever hang out with these guys?
No, I never did hang out with them, but I had a good relationship with them, especially with McCartney. Paul was always very, very nice. John was a little difficult sometimes. But, I'm very proud to say that I think I'm the only living person, or there's two of us now, my business partner, that produced a Beatle concert all 3 years they toured.
Wow.
And it was an honor. I remember when Paul and Merle Haggard were saluted by the president at Lincoln Center, and I got goosebumps because I had something to do with both of their careers,
Cool.
That is amazing. And then you went on, of course, Bernie's right, the Beatles, and you went on to start up concerts from everybody from Jerry Lee Lewis to George Jones, Tommy Wynette, the Everly Brothers. I mean, it's very impressive. And then I guess it was around 1966 when two guys, as you say, by the name of Nicholson and Muir, went to lunch and said, husband predict wives and wives predict husbands. Chuck Barris, next thing you know, gets involved and kind of sets up the format. And the next thing you know, you got the Newlywed Game and some of the most quotable, I would say, moments in not just game show television history, but television history belong to you, Bob Eubanks.
Well, let me tell you a little backstage. First of all, they audition every disc jockey in town. And then they start auditioning weathermen. Letterman was a weatherman. Sajak was a weatherman. Really? But anyway, we had to show the format to the big guys in New York, and so they all flew out to L.A., and couple number one was an unknown comedian named Dom DeLuise and his wife Carol.
Wow!
But down at the end was a cute little blonde. Now this is '66, and television was pretty quiet. And I said, "What's your favorite nickname for your husband?" And she said, "Numbnuts." And the ABC boys went over backwards laughing, went upstairs, bought the show without a pilot.
Oh, about that.
Wow. That is funny. And you're speaking of notable phrases. You mentioned Chuck Barris, of course, the Gong Show. Everybody remembers. He was really kind of a wild guy. But the phrase "making whoopee," that was one of your signature phrases on the Newlywed Game.
Yeah, they wanted me to say "make love," and I wouldn't do it. And I said, I don't think you should have to explain that to your children until you were ready to do so. We agreed that Sinatra had a hit record called "Making Whoopee," and that's how that all came about.
Sure, that's a great song. So, but you came back to the game show stuff, and when I think of the great game show hosts, I think of guys like Wink Martindale, obviously, and you came back 20 years after the Newlywed Game with Card Sharks. Had a pretty nice run there for about 4 years.
Yeah, Card Sharks was one of my favorite shows. I've done 11 different game shows.
Wow, 11.
And certainly Card Sharks and Newlywed Game were my two favorites. And by the way, on Card Sharks, you remember the brunette model? Her name is Lacey Pemberton.
I do.
She chooses all of the contestants for The Bachelor and Bachelorette, has for years.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. I do remember Lucy. Yes, I do. Wow.
It's fun. People think of the dating game and the Newlywed Game in the same vein, but the Newlywed Game actually lasted a couple of decades, whereas the dating game was just 4 or 5 years. I mean, you had really...
I did an original program after 2000, so I think I'm the only host to do an original program of the same format for 5 decades.
Wow. Incredible. And by the way, did you hang out with these guys like Jim Lang, Art Fleming, who used to host Jeopardy, Peter Marshall, who used to host the Hollywood Squares? They were all your contemporaries, I believe. Did you hang out with those guys?
No, I did not. But I will tell you, Wink Martindale's wife used to be my secretary. And Wink was on the radio at the time. And I would tell her, I said, "Sandy, turn the darn radio down, will you?" She says, "I can't because he gives me a test every night."
They got new shows. It's not the same. I don't know what it is. Bob, maybe it was a long, skinny mic, the way you guys presented yourselves. You guys seem like entertainers. No disrespect to the newer shows, even folks like Regis and Meredith Vieira years ago with Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. But it just seems like that era is gone, and it began and ended with you guys.
Well, you have to stay out of the way. You can't be the star. Now, I will tell you, I think Steve Harvey does a wonderful job at what he does.
You like him on Family Feud, but with Richard Dawson, when he was the star of that show, kissing everybody and all that, did you like that?
Oh, yeah, and Richard was, never mind. And he was an unusual fellow, too. He didn't like the producer, so he wouldn't let the producer stay in the studio while they're shooting the show.
I don't even know that.
That is...
But you're right. You guys kind of stayed out of the way and let the contestants and the game speak for itself.
Yep, and I learned it from Johnny Carson. Johnny Carson could say 1,000 words with an expression. And I learned from John, because at first I didn't know how to handle a difficult situation. But boy, you just look in the mic, look into the camera, flash an expression, and everybody knows what you're thinking.
Yep, he was the master. Bob Eubanks, the former host of the Newlywed Game, and we're going to talk about your product again in about a minute. But listen, Alex Trebek, he is one of the last of the greats, I would say. He's in a category with you. I mean, do you know him?
Yes, I do.
You do.
And Alex is such a nice guy. And, there's shows for hosts and hosts for shows. I couldn't do Jeopardy. I can't even barely pronounce his name, much less all the others. But Alex, I don't think, and he and I talk about this, I don't think he could have done Newlywed Game because he's not a rascal.
Right.
But
That's right.
He does such a great job on that show. And I just pray for him all the time, because if anybody can beat it, Alex can beat it.
Yeah, it is sad.
Wonderful.
Right.
Okay, so let's get back to how we started this conversation, Bob. Again, you're looking to help people out. You've had a great career. You said it. And now you've got a product, 60up.com. That's where you can find out about the balance board, 60up.com. And give us the Monarch Note version of what people can expect. If they're going through what, why would this help them?
Well, it's going to change your life. If you're having balance issues, it gets your brain and your body working together. And the exercises are quite simple, but you will notice an improvement almost immediately. I've talked to several doctors about it, and they agree. It's just something different, and it's something that will help anybody that's having balance issues. I'm so proud to be able to talk about it, because it was invented for me. Normally, you have a product, then you go out and try to find a host. This was invented for me, and I can look anybody in the eye and say it's wonderful. It's just wonderful.
We feel your sincerity, Bob Eubanks. Go to 60up.com to check out the balance board, especially if you're over the age of 60. Bob Eubanks, you're a legend and a gentleman, and we're honored to have you on the Bernie and Sid show on WABC Radio. Thank you very much.
Can I leave you with a thought?
Sure.
95-year-old man, friends get him a hot date. She says, I'm here to give you super romance. He says, I'll take the soup.
Well done, Bob.
You got to love it.
Well done. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, take care. We're going to wrap up Bernie and Sid right after this.